gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Nunn, to Congress, to the Financial Services Committee, and to the Capital Markets Committee. The gentleman is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and it's a privilege getting to serve with this august team, both of fellow freshmen and of experienced senior leaders on this. Hey, thank you so much for the members of the committee today who have gotten to hear our testimony from the group in front of us. You each have incredible life stories. I'm going to start, Ms. Bell, with you. You are an inspiration to my 5 young daughters, so hopefully they can follow in the incredible lead that you've led. You know, your organization, Black Girls Venture, it provides minority female founders access to a network in order to attract capital from around the country. One of the economic issues that have arisen over our country in the last 2 decades is really that the concentration of venture capital and early stage investing has largely only supported certain parts of the country. While there's been some modest growth in this type of investment outside our 2 coasts, most of the venture funding still goes to just 3 locations: California, Massachusetts, and New York. Now, there's some good things that come out of New York, so that's fair. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot that needs to be done to incentivize venture in Iowa and other states like Iowa that are rural areas where we have a lot of good opportunity, but one that certainly seems to help would be the expanding of the pool of potential investors into young and private businesses. So, Ms. Bell, in your view, how would you recommend we expand the addition of accredited investors to promote capital formation in parts of the country and in communities that have not benefited from such growth or funding over the last 2 decades?
Thank you. I think that people want an opportunity to get in, right? We want to figure out what that means. And so when I think about how you would expand the definition, one of the ways I would consider is I do think $150K threshold could be more fair when we look at the percentage of the country that is able to get there, right? I think right now we're talking about who's there already, who's already at a certain level of wealth. But part of the conversation is who's trying to get there. And as I've worked myself here, I don't want you to now move the needle again, and then I'm shut out again. I think there's a large pool of potential investors who are kind of waiting in the wings. A lot of the examples that we're talking about are not really including Black people. And they're not including the early stage companies by Black and brown people. And that's because those Black and brown people are not, even despite being the fastest growing entrepreneur segment in the country, still receiving less than 1% of venture capital. So if we can open up and expand the definition and more people can get in, then more investment can go to Black and brown founders.
Would absolutely agree with you on that, Ms. Bell. And I would also expand it to say, folks across the country, a lot of diversity out there, a lot of great entrepreneurs ready to take up the mantle in the same way you have. I do want to ask where the government can be helpful here, or where maybe the government needs to get out of your way and just let you do you. You know, one of the notions we hear is that the current SEC seems to embrace that private offerings are too risky and that most individuals aren't able to understand the risk and reward associated with such offerings. I think you and I both agree here that this vastly underestimates the intelligence and the financial sophistication of a lot of Americans who, as you know, may not be wealthy enough to be able to jump into this as a qualified accreditation. So my ask here is, what in your view would be the best way to recommend to the SEC someone's financial sophistication regardless of their wealth?
Great question, thank you. I think we have to think about what other intermediaries could exist. So our particular organization would be considered an ecosystem building organization, an entrepreneur support organization. There's other entities in the country that may be able to help qualify, like organizations like ours, organizations like CDFIs, other financial institutions, or people who are working with small businesses directly that would be able to help the investors also feel that the investments are de-risked. I think that's the key, right? Is there a way to support and fund other intermediaries that the SEC would govern, but don't have to be the SEC or don't have to be FINRA, right? We're only talking about 2 when there's hundreds of ecosystem builder organizations out there that could get certified to be able to handle some of the lift of what it would mean to define sophistication.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. I can see why you have exceeded so well in this space. I really appreciate that. And with that, Madam Chair, I would yield back the remainder of my time.